Good morning, good afternoon, maybe even good evening, everyone. Ingmar Boon, Microsoft, on our 12th episode of the Business Central ISV podcast. And you might already, you see the name Steve Mordue, and for those that are already a longer time in the BizApp application space might know, or might already think hey, Steve, yeah, of course, we know Steve, not only as an MVP, but also as a strong voice, I believe, in the business application space, mainly from a CRM perspective. And we'll talk definitely about CRM, although this is a Business Central podcast. Some integration work has been done, Steve, but enough about my intro. First of all, welcome, Steve. I'm going to give the floor to you to introduce yourself and your company, RapidStart, and maybe also talk a bit about, where you're going to from a Business Central perspective, and then we'll continue the conversation, of course, about the ISV world that you live in, day out. So again, welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining. Over to you.
Thanks for having me, Ingmar. I've enjoyed your podcast. There certainly aren't many podcasts. In fact, I can't think of another one that is focused on this topic. And I know we're a niche group. ISVs are a niche in general, and any that are related to Business Central is more of a niche. But there's not a lot of good places to get information. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things any ISV could probably agree with, is just trying to figure out how to succeed, how to operate as an ISV. Just not a lot of information available out there. We're probably one of the OG ISVs. We still have a GUID as our link in Appsource for our app because we were one of the first ones. I remember actually having to wait until they had enough critical mass to launch Appsource because they didn't want to launch it with two.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, this is going back a while. When they put that together, they didn't want to launch it with just a handful of apps. That wouldn't have been impressive. So a few of us that were in there early were kind of waiting for them to get to enough point where they would actually launch that store. And obviously, since then, it's grown massively, right? We got thousands of apps in Appsource, services, lots of things in that space. Over the years, that space has gone, has been a darling of Microsoft and something they've completely ignored. So they kind of go back and forth on the value of ISVs. Not in the rhetoric. The rhetoric is always there, but in the actions, you'll see over the years, ISVs, there'll be a lot of investment, a lot of effort, somebody leading that space who's highly motivated, and then all of a sudden they move on to another role. The replacement is slow to happen, and momentum is kind of lost. So we completely owe our success to Appsource. 100% of our applications are installed through Appsource. It's the only installation mechanism.
I want to talk about that definitely on that later on, but please continue, Steve.
And it drives it does drive a reasonable amount of traffic. In addition to our own efforts to drive traffic, but it's I have a love-hate relationship with Appsource and always have. I know most of the people that are involved in the teams over there at different levels, and there's some very good people on that team that are trying very hard to make that motion work well for Microsoft partners. And
so I'm sure we're going to talk more about Appsource during this episode, but who's RapidStart and who's Steve?
Sure. So I started out in the tech business as a SalesForce partner back when SalesForce first launched. SalesForce was cloud from day one. They were cloud before anybody even knew cloud was a term. That's just how they were deployed. And we were with them for up until 2011 when Microsoft first launched Dynamics CRM Online. Their first cloud business application that started with CRM Online. And I remember looking at it. I had a partner at the time. We were a Midland Salesforce partner. We weren't one of the big ones, but we weren't one of the little ones. We were kind of in the middle of the pack there. And I remember looking over the fence at what Microsoft had launched, and of course, we're with SalesForce. So as far as we were concerned, it was a bunch of junk and terrible stuff, and wasn't going to survive, see the light of day. Microsoft came to the cloud, more than a decade later. They're way behind a lot of folks. People talk a lot about how far ahead Salesforce is of Dynamics, but Salesforce had over a decade head start in cloud before Microsoft even came there. So it takes a while to level that. But I saw an opportunity in that space that I think a lot of other partners in other parts of business applications saw in this transition, and that was that most of the partners in the ecosystem were on premise. I mean, that's what they had. That was their skill set. They were familiar with selling, equipment, selling perpetual licenses, doing those services in on-premise environments, because that's what we had. And that was actually what drew me over to Dynamics when I first launched it. Was none of the other partners, for the most part, wanted anything to do with it. They were perfectly content sticking with the on-premise. We had a cloud background from Salesforce, so we were comfortable with it. So I just saw an opportunity to jump in and make some waves. And apparently we did. As one of the first people to jump into the CRM online space while all the on-premise guys were kind of poking it with a stick, we started selling it, and we started moving that stuff and got on Microsoft's radar. And that's kind of what got us on the radar initially way back when. And I've done my best to leverage those relationships for all this time. But I'm sure it's the same in Business Central, those coming from NAV or GP that was on premise, and here comes this Business Central cloud thing. And I think it wasn't as bad as it was with CRM, of the reluctance of partners to move to cloud, but there was certainly some resistance to make the move to cloud. I think it was more significant with CRM because it was earlier. Everybody had the opportunity to kind of see CRM go to cloud and know what happened there. So I think it may have been a little easier for some of the ERP, on either side to make that move to cloud.
I really don't know. But of course, there are very few Business Central partners that also do CRM or vice versa. So the business knowledge was not there, I think, with the Business Central partners back, I think, around 10 year-ish ago. And I think the slow move also when you joined or started in 2011 with Dynamics, that a lot of partners were like, hey, but the money is coming in easily. Why should I change? No one is hitting me, or I'm not feeling any pain. The water is very warm. Why should I go into that typical hockey stick?
Sure.
And I think, do you think that's maybe one of the reasons that it goes so that slowly?
Yeah, I think that. Plus, it's ironic that Salesforce was cloud for a decade before, but nobody ever seemed to realize this or think about this. And then when Microsoft, because the Microsoft ecosystem was generally not cloud, when they moved to cloud, suddenly it was, what do you mean? I'm going to rent my software? I don't like this. I want to own it. I want to have it on my own. And it was like this big deal with a lot of customers and partners that Salesforce customers had been in that boat for a decade and didn't even talk about it. But suddenly over here, it was this big deal. What do you mean rent my software? So I think that was one of the challenges that partners couldn't figure out how to sell it. They're coming up against customers. They're like, why would I want to rent software? And they couldn't make the case for the most part. I didn't really try that hard. That's fine. We'll just sell you some more boxes and sell you some more perpetual license. They knew how to make money pre-SaaS, but they struggled figuring out, how do I make money in the SaaS world? Oh my God, what's going to happen? So I'm sure that led to a lot of the resistance at the time also of partners coming in. I mean, it took a couple of years after, CRM Online first launched back in 2011 before it really started getting any traction. It really took a while for enough partners, and a lot of it was new partners that were getting into CRM for the first time, maybe, IT partners, stuff like that, moving into that space. The traditional CRM partners were very slow to make that move. Obviously old news now, right? Everybody's there. I don't know how you could survive today if all you did was on premise anymore. But
true.
It took a while.
And I want to go back to 2011. So when you started in that Dynamics space with all your knowledge from the Salesforce space. Did you start with like an out-of-the-box solution like RapidStart today, your company, your solution, but was it already back then like, hey, we come in, we have like a standardized solution, we don't do any customization or very little? Was that your business model?
It was not. When we came over, actually for the first about year, we were offering both. We were going to do this agnostic. If a customer wants Salesforce, we'll do Salesforce. If they want Dynamics, we'll do Dynamics. But at the time, Dynamics had launched at, I think it was $44, and that included everything. This was before the separation of platform.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost was just significantly lower than where Salesforce was at the time. I don't remember what it was. And I just decided I'm going to start pushing this product. And I remember having Microsoft call us and say, hey, we really love what you guys are doing. If you'd like some help, we'd appreciate if you stop selling Salesforce. And so I had to make a business decision. I did. I said, you know what, we're going to drop Salesforce and go all in on this product. And Microsoft did help us quite a bit back in those days. But we were doing the same thing we were doing at Salesforce, customizing, services, the normal SI approach. And one of the things I learned after a short time, as a couple of years in the ecosystem, was, Dynamics suffers the same problem that Salesforce does, and everybody is aware of, and that's this adoption challenge. You can build the best CRM solution in the world, but if your users aren't adopting it, it's useless, right? I mean, you don't get any metric, you don't get any value out of it at all. And so many implementations of both Salesforce and Dynamics struggled because of adoption. And that one always bothered me. And so I really spent a lot of time thinking about what is the cause of this. I mean, we built this awesome solution. It does everything you could possibly want it to do, to make sales. And it just occurred to me that from talking to several people that, they're just too complicated. The solution, maybe it's great, I don't know, but I'm not a technology person. I'm a sales guy, and it's just too complicated. It feels like more work than just using my spreadsheet. So I'm going to stick with my spreadsheet. Thank you very much. And that just resonated with me for a long time, that what could be done to make this thing simpler? And both Salesforce and Microsoft were kind of going the opposite direction, right? They were in this feature battle, adding, just making more and more and more stuff. It end up with a Swiss Army knife, the size of a steamboat. It's just this massive thing. And I thought, let's try an experiment. So we built a solution that we installed on top of Dynamics CRM. And all this thing did was hide a bunch of stuff. We just hid this. People don't use that, hide it. All these buttons in the ribbon that people don't know what they are, just hide them, hide everything. And boil it down to this very simple, my idea was 2 buttons. You couldn't get there, but that was the goal, was to get down to as few options as possible. And customers were liking it. They were actually buying Dynamics and then buying our solution to put on top of Dynamics to hide 80% of what they bought, which was completely ironic, But that was kind of where we got this idea that, this could be something. Yeah.
So that I was typing while you were talking, Steve, because the beauty of simplicity is to make it as simple as possible.
It is, and it's also not easy. People think simple is easy. But simple is difficult. To have something. I mean, you can make something simple that's not very valuable. Just remove all. But you have to be kind of surgical about how you go about making something actually simple to use, but can still provide value and solve the problem.
Yeah.
But that led to us, naming that solution RapidStart CRM at the time. This was back in 2015. We launched it together with Microsoft at Worldwide Partner Conference in 2015. I think it was in DC. It was called the Worldwide Partner Conference back then. And we launched that up on stage with Microsoft because, they just saw that primarily there was a lot of the people that are looking for simple were smaller customers, right? An enterprise organization, they've got an IT department, they got training resources, they have ability to try and help, their users, but the smaller businesses, mid-sized business didn't have those resources. So that was kind of a target for a simpler solution. So that was where Microsoft was feeling they were struggling with traction, a lot of churn in that space. People were signing up for the app, and below a certain size customer, too many of them were just churning out. And so they kind of saw us at the time as, potential, stop to that churn. And we did. The churn rate plummeted when people installed our app on top of Dynamics. So there definitely is a market for people looking for something simpler to use. When they separated their first-party apps from the underlying platform, which was called XRM at the time, it's called Power Platform now, and then they divided those apps vertically into workloads like sales, service, this, that, and the other, we saw an opportunity to, let's just move our RapidStart off the top of sales where it's hiding a bunch of stuff and just put it down here on the platform without sales. That'll let us run on a lower cost license. That'll let us run in a cleaner environment. We're not dealing with all this stuff that our target customer isn't using. We haven't hidden it. It's no longer there. Easier, faster way to get there. And that's when things kind of really took off for us. We get well over 100,000 users of these apps out there in the space. I mean, it's been a long time coming, right? 2015 is a while back. So that's been a while. And so that's kind of what got us to where we are today. I took this idea of, let's take something that Microsoft has built targeting enterprise customers, but as a result, it's become too complex for a lot of customers. And let's create a version on the same platform, because people are drawn to that. If you're in the Microsoft sphere, you want something that's in the Microsoft sphere. So let's create an alternative for those folks. Charles has told me himself that they don't consider what we're doing competition to Dynamics. He said we're going after a different customer, and they're going after the enterprise customer, having a lot of success with that enterprise customer, all those features. And now, of course, Copilot has just added a whole another slew on top of all this of complexity. So we did the same thing for project management, and we did the same thing for field service, because another two areas Dynamics went deep in. And again, their target customer, or the larger customer with a more advanced solution, we saw an opportunity. Let's make a simpler version of that. And then I was at one of these conferences, or maybe it was on a call when I was talking to Charles, or talking about Business Central, because we were CRM. You mentioned before, CRM or ERP, seldom do they mix unless you're at a really, really large company. Most do one or the other, and we've always been in that CRM camp. And I was talking to Charles and just about something. I think it was before one of my calls in the, just chat before we hit the record button. And he was talking about how, Business Central is just blowing up. I mean, this thing is just plain blowing up. And I thought, maybe we should start a Business Central practice. So I did some looking around in Business Central and decided that, the last time I tried to do something that wasn't in my wheelhouse, it hurt us. When we first came in this ecosystem doing Dynamics, Microsoft said, you're doing so well with Dynamics, you should be selling Office 365. And we did that for a couple of years, and it was a massive distraction. We didn't know it well enough. It was hurting our CRM, skills and ability. So I saw that potential for Business Central as well. I said, there are a lot of very talented Business Central partners in the world. What do we have to add to that? I've got nothing that we can add. We can't do it as good as most of them. What would be a business case for jumping in there? The fact that a lot of people are doing well with that product is for them.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I just dropped the whole Business Central thing. But I had talked to a couple of folks before, and I said, I agree. Maybe you don't want to do Business Central, but Business Central is not perfect. I mean, it's come a long way. It's an awesome application, but there's a couple of areas that they really haven't focused on. Like, for example, the CRM-ish type capabilities has not been a focus. I mean, it's an ERP, CRM
fully aligned,
and kind of loosely bolted on, some time ago at some customer request, but not really an area they've invested heavily in. So there was that got me interested in looking at that, and then I saw where Microsoft was. Their approach for that Business Central customer who wants some more CRM-like capabilities was, well, integrate it with dynamic sales. There you go. You got the Mac Daddy sales app here. Here's the little wiring connector to wire those two together, and now you've got this sales app. But a lot of Business Central customers are not enterprise customers. They're mostly our target for RapidStart. They're small and mid-sized customers is the primary customer base.
Yeah.
So I thought, I wonder if we could integrate RapidStart with Business Central, and what that would take. Microsoft did it with theirs, so I wonder what that would take. And actually, it ended up being much simpler than I thought. We use the same tooling that Microsoft uses, so the same process they use for connecting Business Central, combination of integration and virtual tables into Dynamics sales. I looked at that plumbing and I'm like, we can use this same plumbing and just hook it up to ours instead. So a little more complicated than that, but mostly,
I hear you. Yeah,
that was mostly what that was about. So that's been now our newest step into the ISV space related to Business Central. Yet it's still, still a Dataverse app.
Of course, Dataverse, I think, is the standards for Dynamics 365, except maybe for Business Central yet-ish.
That's going to be a big move. I mean, I remember talking to Muhammad Alam. I don't know if you remember.
SAP now. Yeah.
He was the AX guy, running the AX move, that move to cloud and that sort of stuff. And I remember when Business Central was popping up under Marco.
Research.
Yep. When Marco was bringing that up, Marco was a fireball. I'm sure all the Business Central folks know that. But there was a little bit of overlap between the customer base, right? Between AX and what Business Central was trying to move into, some level of overlap. And if you're a product owner, you worry about your product. You're not so worried about somebody else's product. And he had this idea, and we actually went out to Seattle and met with him and a couple of other folks on his team about, we like what you're doing with RapidStart. Do you think you could do a RapidStart or help us develop a RapidStart-like version of AX? I'm like, really? Why would you do that? Well, we see an opportunity, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, the opportunity you see is the one that Marco over here is trying to create. So it's kind of interesting how, you got this, he had the product at the time. I don't know what it is now, but it was like minimum of 20 users, and it was
still today
$180 a user. So I mean, it was definitely it was definitely aimed at larger customers, but I don't know if he was just seeing Marco come up, from underneath and potentially cannibalizing some of his spot and defensively thinking about, let's bring this down. It actually went all the way to, he was ready to go. He was ready to go, had to get some approval. So the first stop was Alyssa Taylor, marketing. And Alyssa just killed it immediately, dead. No, they're going to do this over here because, she's agnostic. She's seeing Business Central moving up and sees absolutely no reason to bring F&O down there. So just a little interesting history people may not know.
Yes, I didn't know about that. Good insights. Now that you're not moving into the Business Central space, but you're touching the Business Central worlds, you have an integration. Does that mean that you're going to sell to Dynamics Business Central partners or to customers? And how are you going to approach them?
So, this kind of circles back to the Appsource challenges a little bit. My goal is that Business Central partners that have customers that want some CRM capabilities, they have an option. You've got dynamic sales for those that want that, but, a lot of those customers are going to feel, that that's too complicated or too expensive. And, here's an alternative, that'll provide much of what they're looking for. And it runs on Power Apps licenses. It's less expensive and simpler to use, just so they have an option in their toolbox to offer customers. That would be great. We don't have any interest in getting into the Business Central space, but obviously we've got a service business and we're developing partners to, help build out the RapidStart side for customizations beyond that. We've integrated quite a few things between Business Central, and we have the ability to actually create quotes in our RapidStart app that obviously surface in Business Central using the virtual tables. So, but everybody has different things they'd like to see. So there's some customization opportunities there. And for Business Central partners that are savvy and Dataverse, they could certainly do those, or we can help on that side, or we're bringing on partners that can help on that. The biggest challenge we're having right now on the Appsource side, which actually Business Central recently got, was the ability to co-sell through CSP. So CSP Marketplace as an ISV, you can go through some processes or whatever and have your ISV solution available in these distributed marketplaces, meaning a customer or a partner who's selling licenses, which many are, it's just available to them to pick and add to their invoice to their customer. Microsoft hasn't finished the wiring yet for Dataverse to be able to do that. They've got SaaS and they've got a Business Central. They prioritize that because of all the massive growth in Business Central, which annoyed me a little bit. Kind of moved ahead of us in line, but I understand. So, but actually, we're in conversations about that now. Hopefully, to get that work, because right now a customer literally has to go to Appsource and plop down a credit card to get our apps.
What I will do after this call, Steve, is to share 2 platforms that partners have built, where they showcase many solutions worldwide. One is in Belgium, one is in Sweden. I talked to the COO, I think on my first or second podcast, Anton, and they've built a platform to work, also to have other partners, to work with other partners to showcase the solution. So I'll share that after our call, because I need to look up the right website address, platform address. And that feedback that you're sharing now came also from that Swedish partner, like, hey, yes, Microsoft is moving forward with Appsource, but it's not there yet.
Let me guess that his first name is Marcus. Was that the Swedish partner? I think I know who you're talking about.
No, it's not. So the COO is Anton. And then his last name, typical Swedish name. They have a very, very great platform where they showcase as an ISV other solutions as well.
One of the things we actually are in the process right now of publishing all of our apps, or doing an update. It's in the publish queue at Appsource right now, all of our apps. We're bringing them to 19 languages across all of them, and very deep translation all the way down to the Canvas components and everything else. It's a pretty heavy load to have done that. Because still, even though we have many, many users of our RapidStart apps, they're predominantly in the US, UK, Australia. There's a lot of markets where there's some spotty usage, but I was just seeing an opportunity to grow those, like Germany or Sweden. I don't speak Swedish or German. Our team doesn't. So we can't help those customers. In Australia, I mean, they speak English, but the time zone, I can't help those customers time zone. So I had this idea of creating this regional certified partners. So these would be, somebody who's in Germany, who speaks German, who understands Dataverse, or the platform or something like that, and kind of having them be like, our people in Germany, for the RapidStart apps. That kind of led to having to do this deep level of translation across all this stuff. So we're in the process of rolling that out now, bringing on these certified regional partners. I think you're just going to have one per region. I mean, anybody can, any customer can get RapidStart. Any partner can help them with it. It's open and unlocked. Anybody can do it. But
can I ask some questions on that? Can I ask some questions on that, Steve? Because I was a bit surprised in the beginning of our call, or was it just before we started the call, that you mentioned Appsource as your main distribution channel or implementation channel. Your sales motion, is that mostly via email and no direct contact anymore, and also the implementation is done automatically, or is there still a lot of customer interaction? How do you work?
So on the Appsource side, what Appsource provides for us as an ISV is several things. One, in the XRM space, we work with these things called solutions, right? Mm-hmm. Managed solution is what we're installing into a customer's environment. That's what brings in whatever we've built. And managed solutions are their IP, right? This is your IP. And in the old days, we used to mail these solutions around to customers to install. Well, it's not difficult to convert a managed solution into an unmanaged solution and just take off your IP. And we actually had, over the years, some people pop up basically with our solution with their name stuck on it. So I'm like, okay, well, this is a challenge. Yeah. So one of the things Microsoft Appsource does is it holds the solution files, and customer goes in there and buys it, and then it's installed from Microsoft. Customer or partner never really gets their hand on our raw solution. It just gets installed. Same way Dynamics apps just get installed by Microsoft. So that's a pretty valuable thing when you're looking at IP. And again, everything's customizable and it's low enough cost. I don't know why people would want to steal the IP, but people do. I don't know. I want to save $5 a month. I'm going to go, spend a bunch of time, but whatever. So Appsource provides that provisioning engine for us, which is great. Also, another little secret about Appsource that people may not know is when you're publishing in Appsource as an ISV and it gets to that preview stage, this is the last step where you can kind of look at everything before you make it public to people. That preview stage gives you a link that you can use, and you can leave that app perpetually in preview. In fact, that's how we deploy the Business Central connector solution. Because if I just put that up on Appsource, it requires RapidStart on one end, Business Central on the other. There has to be some steps done ahead of time, and then you need to go get that app. And again, I don't want to just ship that raw app out to people. So it's up on Appsource behind a private link. So I can just send them, here's the link. They still use Appsource for provisioning. Perfect. The other thing they've done is transactability, which there's more work to be done on that, but it works. It could definitely be more robust, but it works, which allows a customer to go to Appsource. They like our app. They can click buy it right now, and they buy it. And, they're taken right into their Microsoft admin dashboard, make the purchase on the current account. So for customers that are buying their licenses directly from Microsoft, this works perfectly. They can add, reduce, cancel, do whatever they want with our stuff all on their own, change credit, whatever they want to do. It's same as their Microsoft shows up in the same list as all their other Microsoft things, which before that, they had to go to our website, pay via Stripe and have this other, it was kind of messy. So that works fine for, again, customers that are buying direct from Microsoft, but that's pretty common in the US. Not as common in some of these other countries I'm finding, countries, Germany and some of these other countries, it's not that common for customers to buy direct. I think that Microsoft kind of entered many of those markets via partner, and that kind of was established early on that you buy your licenses from your partner, and that nobody's seen a reason to change. So I think a lot of the customers in some of those regions are buying through their partner directly. So this model doesn't work so good for that. And they got to have a separate bill over here from Microsoft just for our stuff. So that kind of circles back to the sales wiring that I'm eager to get fixed up. But it does provide a lot of stuff for us. Microsoft collects the money. I don't have to worry about it. They just send me, my 97%. That got reduced down to only a 3% fee. And for that 3%, well worth it. If any ISV building your own system to deal with that,
and with the renewal, is it 1.5%?
I don't know. I don't.
In the Azure world, it's 1.5 with a renewal.
So when they dropped it to the 3, because originally when Google when Googs came in and took over Appsource for a little while before he retired, he came in with big ideas. And step one is, even though you ISVs aren't getting much from us, you're going to start paying us 20% of any revenue for any ISV solution, whether it comes through. I mean, he went in real heavy. When he moved on, it didn't take long for the ISV folks to say, you know what, let's just align with what they're doing in Azure. Make it simple.
Yeah.
So I would assume if it drops down to 1.5 in Azure, it's the same here. I think they just aligned on the same model that Azure Marketplace was using, because Azure Marketplace has been wildly successful, where Appsource has struggled to get near that. But I mean, that's logical when you think about it, right? I mean, Azure Marketplace's target is IT professionals. IT professionals know what they're looking for. They know where to find it. They have ability to push a button. They've got privileges to do it and all this stuff. But Appsource is business users, right? I'm a sales manager. I'm going to go into Appsource and look for a CRM. Oh, here's one. Click the button. I don't have access. I don't have permission to install. So those are kind of blockers, I think, for all of us. I would love to be able to. I remember James Phillips used to talk about that 5x5, and I'm sure it's internal. You've heard the 5x5. 5 minutes to install, 5 minutes to wow. I don't know that we ever got to that point with anything, but it was very aspirational. But as an aspirational goal, to get as close as you can is certainly worthwhile, and that's where I'd like to see some more work in Appsource. I'm a business user coming in looking for a rental management ISV solution for Business Central, or a CRM solution for whatever I'm looking for. I'm a business user, and I need that ability to let me click a button or two and just have.
Sorry to interrupt you, Steve, but in fact you are the business person that pushes simplicity. And again, simplicity is not simple. Is complex, or to get simple, it means you need to. It requires a lot of complexity in your thinking and getting to the simple form. But what you're saying is not only the business application needs to be simple, but also Appsource needs to be simple.
Yeah, exactly. That right now, that would be the biggest thing that is slowing us down from slowing the growth or the potential of the growth is the steps. I mean, they removed test drives. They decided test drives. My understanding was it was too much work for them to administer. I don't understand why. It was completely automated and it ran on my environment. So I don't understand how it was any trouble for them whatsoever. But they eliminated that. So now, because with test drives, any user could do a test drive. I mean, it just provisioned them on my environment, and they got to touch and feel and see. They didn't need any credential. They didn't need anything to be able to do a test drive. Well, they eliminated that. So now the only way that a user can actually touch and feel our app is to install it. All right, they got to install it. It's got a 30-day trial, no problem. They can install it, and it requires a Dataverse license, but there's a trial for that, so it still doesn't cost. But think of the steps, right? Now I've got to, first of all, even if I've got the privileges, hopefully I do. If not, I got to find someone who does to install a trial for Power Apps. I've got to create an environment in Power Apps, which I don't even know what is or how to do. And then I've got to install this app. I've got to assign some security roles before I can, use it. That's where people are.
Too complex.
It requires somebody with the tech comfort to be able to walk through those steps to get to that. And that's nowhere near 5x5. It's 5 minutes to wow once you get it, but it doesn't take 5 minutes to get it. It takes a lot of steps, and just too many people give up.
5 hours.
And you know what? I can jump over to HubSpot and I can actually launch a trial and be using their application in minutes, and I can see it. So there are options out there for solutions that are much easier to get. Microsoft has not by design, not intentionally, they just haven't spent enough effort on that motion.
We're a bit over our half an hour, but I love the conversation, Steve.
Sure.
I think that it's maybe part of, and I'm a Microsoft person, and I don't want to talk negatively about Microsoft, but what I think I see a lot with Microsoft is like first we create the complexity, then we realize it's too complex, and then we go back to the simple, easy to use solution platform pages where consumers, partners can more easily use that platform again, that solution. That's something that I see happening over and over and over.
I agree. I think that the difference today versus a couple of years ago, when that did kind of feel like the norm, you'd see something come out and version 1 was going to be a little challenging, but that it would get shaken out. Yep. And by the time we got through a couple of revs, that was going to be a good solution, a good feature, good whatever. Copilot and the AI is just blowing everything off the tables. I mean, that has become the most competitive landscape in IT now between all the big players. Microsoft, Salesforce, Google. That is the competitive battleground, and you've got to put all your soldiers in that battle right now. You don't have any choice, which means you're pulling them off of all these other skirmishes that have been taking place. So the pace of getting something that's not on that particular roadmap, looked at and like you talk about, move to that good state is much slower right now. So I don't know how they fix that.
Good observation.
Yeah, I don't know how they fix that, because that is the competitive landscape for the foreseeable future. I know they're aware that, hey, we've got all of these issues that are in process that are all being put on hold to focus on this. Okay, well, are we ever going to get back to those things? How do we pull troops off that front line to allocate over here when that battle is still raging? That battle is still raging. Yeah. So I don't know how they solve that one. Hire more people.
I'll tell them.
Please, let's let you know that for me. Thanks.
Maybe my last question has already been answered, Steve, but my last question is always on this podcast, like, if there would be one thing that you could ask Microsoft that would make your business easier, more successful, but that would also be helpful for other ISVs, what would be that one ask?
For me, obviously it's going to be Appsource related. The getting the CSP thing is important, because that opens up huge markets for us. That's very important for us and other ISVs in the Dataverse side. But I think there's motion happening on that end. I've got some calls next week, in fact, from the teams working on some of that stuff. So the bigger one really would be that 5x5 Appsource. I'm not exactly sure how it is for Business Central ISVs, what the steps are when I'm a Business Central user in the warehouse, and I'm looking for I may not have all the privileges in the world, and I'm looking for how do I, as a warehouse manager, find some solution for the warehouse in Appsource, and then get to be able to touch it, see it, use it, go make the case for it, get it installed. What is that path? But if it looks like mine, then that's a blocker for all of us ISVs. That needs to, and it's solvable, right? I mean, we know the users they have to log in order to do anything in Appsource. So you can look and see, do they have privileges in their tenant? If not, let's take them down a different path. I don't know, maybe you can even reach into their environment and see if they have the necessary licenses to install this app. So they don't just go buy an app and then realize they can't install it until they go buy some other Microsoft. There's places where that could be intercepted and give a smoother experience, but it's not something they're focused on at the moment. Yeah.
So again, in fact, the beauty of simplicity is to make it as simple as possible, but not simpler. I love that. I think it goes back not only to business applications, but probably to many things within our platform worlds.
I can't think of anything it doesn't apply to. I mean,
indeed. Yeah, also in our personal life. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Steve, it was like, I mentioned it before, it could take a little bit longer than half an hour, almost 45 minutes. Great call. Thank you so much. Great to see you again. Thank you for the time spent on this podcast. I'm sure we'll meet again, if not on a podcast, maybe one of the events that Microsoft is having.
Yep.
Once again, have a very good day and talk.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, Steve. Talk later. Bye-bye.